Welcome to Going Dark, a podcast about Netflix's sci-fi series, Dark. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga, and today we're discussing Season 1, Episode 8, entitled, As You Sow, So You Shall Reap.
Very appropriate for our current times.
At least in the United States.
Yeah. All right, so this is Episode 8. We're getting down to the thick of things. Very,
different.
very intense episode, I would say, as
yes.
far as, man, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is.
It was a big information dump, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
So we were in the 50s for the first time, which meant we were meeting some completely new characters and then, new versions of a bunch of other characters. And at the same time, we were also having this big, intense mythological, scientific talk between Tannhaus and the stranger.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting a bunch of character stuff and a bunch of mythology stuff. Definitely a lot to dive into.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue maybe a little too much, but
yeah, I would also make that argument. At the same time, it makes sense that at this point they'd be they'd finally get to the 50s, and that we would have more of the science behind the sci-fi.
Yeah.
The more I watch the show, the more I realize that I really need characters to latch onto.
Yeah.
And while I'm interested and invested, definitely invested in Ulrich, in Jonas, in the story, I haven't connected enough with people to really care on a person level. And I feel a little bummed about that.
Yeah. I feel like the show is lacking in heart.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I do enjoy, I enjoyed going to the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this show is so smart and fresh, and it does feel unique, which is so hard to do these days.
Yeah.
And I'm very impressed by the tapestry they weave. And it was great to actually get some answers when it comes to the stranger, and honestly about the premise of the show in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the thing about the 50s too is that it's a weird choice to almost have a third pilot in your 8th episode.
Yeah.
And I understand why they're doing it, and it was very interesting with the whole Ulrich stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fact that I'm in episode 8 and I'm dealing with all of these new, character names are also trying to remember okay, this person is this person and this person is this person.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a weird format, I guess.
Yeah.
Weird pacing.
I'm at least they didn't introduce too many kids. I guess there are still more kids that they could have introduced, but there was enough to keep track of even here.
Yeah.
Made it feel a little bit on first watch.
Yeah.
Definitely felt better on second watch.
Yeah, on second watch it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
But, yeah. All right, so we have a lot to recap, so much so that I have notes.
Yeah, no more off the top of our heads, I guess.
So we start in 1953. We have Helga, who is a young lad, and he is biking around, and he comes to the construction site, which will someday become the power plant. And there are a bunch of police there, and including Egon, who is young and handsome, and there are 2 bodies of children.
Which we expected
someone
to find eventually.
So we have Eric and Yasin, which confirms, I think, that last episode at the end when they were pulling the bodies out, that we were already in the 50s. Mm-hmm. I wasn't positive about that. I was a little confused. So they were in the 50s. Now, as we talked about throughout this whole episode, we're cutting back and forth to the stranger and everything. We're going to leave that for the end. And honestly, most of that will be in the points of interest. So what we're going to go to next is Ulrich, who is following old Olga. Not Olga.
I'm Olga.
Helga through the caves. He ends up going through the portal. And he is in 1953. Oh my goodness gracious me. Mm-hmm. So Helga, young whippersnapper version, he goes home and he meets his mama, and she is not a nice mama.
No, she's a terrible person.
Yeah, want to talk about that?
Well established. What the hell is that? I mean, she's clearly abusive. And his dad just doesn't say
he's like
anything.
nice, but he just doesn't care.
No, I think it's that thing of like, well, raising the children is the wife's duty, is the mother. So however she sees fit, blah, blah, blah. What a...
Yeah, she's creepy. And then, like you said, the dad comes in and Helga's like, there were bodies at the power plant. And he's like, what? Because it's his power plant. So, which we already knew from when he was old.
Well, here's the thing. It's one thing to be a plant director. It's another thing to be the person who like helped bankroll it and came up with the idea for it and to innovate in this way. So I do think this was new information.
Also, interesting choice that he's like this big magnate and he has a limp.
Yeah, I wonder if it was a war injury or like illness. Yeah. I mean, we know he's in a wheelchair in the future.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, that makes sense. So then we cut to a familiar scene as the police try to understand what's up with these weird bodies.
What is this, the third, fourth time that we've seen a variation of this?
Yes, but it's a fun version as they go, made in China. What's up with this? These clothes are made in China?
Are they from China? And they're like, no, probably not.
I don't think so.
Why is there this horrific tattoo on this boy? Unicorn vomiting a rainbow.
Yeah, and I didn't think about the fact that the pennies being from the 80s is much weirder in this world than it was in the 2019 one. So, yeah, very interesting stuff there. So then we cut back to young Helga, who is shirking his tutoring duties. He's supposed to go get tutored. He's playing around in the bunker, as we've seen, where the hunting cabin is. Yeah, it's a very cute scene of him like playing soldier, basically.
Yeah.
And then we see on the bunker that we have those dates that were written down by Noah last episode, again confirming that took place in the 50s. I obviously, he wrote down 50 dates. Last time I wasn't sure if he was writing those dates down in the 80s.
Right. But, like retroactively somehow, but this makes sense. Yeah.
Then as he starts to head out, he gets bullied and robbed and peed on by some young men who are not very nice.
Awful teenagers. Yeah. Gross. Just gross.
Yeah, it was one thing.
What the hell?
It's one thing when they knocked him down and took his money. Peeing on him seems like an excessive thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't pee on
Don't
kids.
pee on people if you can help it, at least,
Unless they have a jellyfish sting.
Right.
Which might be
only if they request that you pee on their jellyfish sting. Don't be like, oh, that guy over there has a jellyfish sting. Well, I'm going to help.
So they are run off by Ulrich. Well, not really by him, but like by seeing someone coming. And he's like, hey, you kid, have you seen an old man? And he's like, no, because we would assume old Helga is in the 80s probably.
Yeah, which at least to me doesn't. I guess it does make sense in that 1986 Helga is the one who is committing the kidnapping acts.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that elderly Helga would like go stop him.
But it's also kind of too late, right?
Right. Because again, I mean, we'll get to like the timeline of it, but like the stuff already happened. Mads is already gone by that point in the 80s.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe what he's trying to stop isn't the killings.
Or maybe he's not trying to stop himself. He's trying to stop Noah.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We shall see.
Either way, but he's not here.
He could attack Noah at any time period.
That's
including
true.
His present. So Ulrich tells Helga to, fight back next time. You have to bite him real hard. And then he wanders off. Ulrich runs into his grandma, Agnes, and his papa, Tranta. And he's very like, oh, snap. I have this time book, and it says that I'm in the time of the past. And Agnes is a cutie, and
if she weren't my grandma, I'd cheat on my wife with her too.
She kind of looks like Hannah in a weird way.
I can see it, like dark and vampy, I guess. Yeah.
She especially with the car behind her, very striking.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the past.
Yes. Well, also, again, we're keeping an eye out for colors and color stories, and her in that like bright red dress and looking the lipstick and everything like. Yeah, I'm trying to, again, piece together at what other points we saw the red lipstick, the cheating, the, talk about sex work. I'm like, how maybe this is connected to her in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's very, overwhelmed and runs away, basically.
Yeah, I don't blame him. But yeah, they were like, all right, we made it to this town and our first encounter is with a crazy person. But he did give us directions.
Yeah. So Helga finally gets to his tutor, Claudia, and he now doesn't have the money to pay her. She's all prissy and not very happy with him and is just kind of... is passive aggressive the right word or just aggressive?
Passive aggressive. Yeah. I think she's pretty passive aggressive.
She's not very nice to one Helga.
I think it's worth noting that this home, this address, is the one that is Ulrich's home as a teenager in the 80s and is just the home of the Nielsen family in 2019 as well. So at some point, the Tiedemans signed it over to the Nielsens.
Yeah, so speaking of that, right now it is the Tiedemann household, but we have Agnes and Tranta coming in. They're going to become like boarders. And so they meet Doris, I believe, is Claudia's mom's name.
I think so.
And so she's sort of giving them a bit of a tour around. And Tranta and Claudia are going to go walk the dog as she shows him the neighborhood. And by that, like the creepy woods.
Seemingly all there's to see in Vinden. We have seen like 2 roads. The school, the hospital, and a lot of creepy woods. Like, what kind of town is this? I mean, that's
kind of town is this?
That's the question. It's the Wild West of Germany, I guess.
So Ulrich arrives at the clock house of one H.G. Tannhaus and gets it confirmed that it's the 50s, and he's like, oh, blah, blah. And then Jana, who is his mama, and Ines show up and they want a new watch, and they tell Tannhaus about the bodies that were found, and Ulrich is all a tizzy. He's like, bodies? Children? I gotta go. So he runs out, leaving his jacket behind.
Yeah, he scares Ines and, is just generally another creepy, crazy adult in this world. Yep.
Then we are back at the power plant construction site. Burned, I think his name is giving this big like press conference thing talking about the future of energy, and he's very excited about it, and he's a salesman. And then he talks to Egon, who is like, what's up with these bodies, man? And Mr. Burned is
Mr. Doppler. His name is Doppler.
I realized that. He is like, it's the coal plant, man. They don't want progress, those coal fiends. And
I mean, to be fair, I see why he would think that. Yeah. But even so, I mean, the way those children were killed seems a bit much. And also that they were children and not just like, I don't know, vagrants or something like that.
Well, they were foreigners.
Oh, so, okay. Oh, God. Let's not get into the whole like foreigner.
Germany.
Let's skip over that.
So then we're back with the kids. Helga is not happy because the other kids are ignoring him and kind of mean to him. So as they move on, he throws a branch into the cave, and Gretchen the dog runs after it. Now we don't know what happens to Gretchen. She'll probably show up in 80s or something.
How is that dog going to get the door open?
Well, that also brings up like how the rappers got through. Like, did Helga drop them, or did they just like show up there?
They could have fallen out of his pockets as he's walking through.
So basically, bye doggy. Then we have Ulrich bursting into the police station, being like, "What do these kids look like? Is it my son? Is it my son?" And then basically he runs off looking for the Dopplers.
So before we move on from that scene, what I really like here is Egon's actually like a good cop. He's like, all right, all the people dismissing this guy as crazy or drunk, like forget them. This is the description for one child. This is the description for another child. Yeah. Did you report your son missing? Yeah. What, like, he's taking it seriously. He's not dismissing Ulrich. Like, I really... Man, how the mighty have fallen. Like, I really get that. And in some ways, this gives me actually more sympathy towards, like, Egon as a character in the 80s. Because I'm like, he was good at one point.
Yeah,
He was, you know, his gut instincts did help him once upon a time. And somewhere along the way, be it like, you know, Ulrich calls him drunk if there's alcoholism, or just, you know,
cheating that leads to alcoholism.
Yeah, just like life wore him down and he's so far past his prime. And but seeing him in his prime as like, yes, he is the hero of Minden. He is the one man like savior, at least that's how he sees himself. It's still kind of nice seeing competency.
So then we have Egon going home and he meets Agnes, and then the kids, you know, rush in and they are like, dog's missing, and then they're like, oh, maybe it's with Helga, so he leaves to go to Helga. And then he has like a weird random scene with Agnes later. No, not Agnes, whoever the mom name is.
Greta, I don't remember. Mrs. Doppler. Yeah, this is the problem when they don't even say characters' names
that's a good
in
point.
an episode.
Like, if you're introducing characters, have people say their names. Just a thought.
Yeah, that would be nice. We watched it twice. They did not say her name. I had to use that like spoiler-free Netflix website, and I almost read a spoiler because it's actually not
totally spoiler-free.
Okay. It would not have been like a major sci-fi spoiler, and it was actually kind of something that we sussed out. But I was like not reading into it further, so I don't think I will be using that website going forward because it's not as good or as faithful to the episode description as we were told. So, or as it promises, I guess. The other thing about the interaction between Egan and Agnes is he's like he's grilling her of like, who's your grandmother? What brought you here? Where are you from? No. And it's only because the dog is missing that he stops and that she might be like saved from having to answer his questions.
Well, because another thing we didn't talk about is that Agnes says that her husband is dead, which is sus.
It might not be the case.
So then we get to the big climax here. Ulrich meets back up with young Helga. Helga shows him that he has this box of dead birds, much like Charlotta will one day.
So maybe it's not as weird as...
Or maybe Charlotta's a murderer.
Or maybe it's the two sides of it, where she's like being analytical about it and like inspecting them like a cop might. And he's like, they're so beautiful when they're dead. The frickin'.
I mean, to be fair,
no wonder you got peed on. Wait, no, take that out of context.
That's too bad. Anyway. No, so I mean, Charlotta's drawing them too. She probably thinks they're beautiful, that's all I'm saying. But anyway, so Ulrich sort of pieces together, you know, hey, you know, you basically end up killing my brother and my son, and you're a bad person. I'm gonna kill you. And Helga's like, oh no. So he runs away, and Ulrich eventually beats him in the head with a rock. It's very intense. And then he throws him down the shaft into the bunker.
And that's how Helga's face got like it did. Injured. His ear got mangled.
And his face got messed up. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about, recap wise, we're going to talk about the Stranger and Tannhaus's discussion. So like the crux of the main thing that I'd say we learn here is that the Stranger has this time machine that makes portals. It is broken, but Tannhaus is the one who originally made it. He wants Tannhaus to fix it so that he can close the wormhole that's in the cave. And he says that the one in the cave was created by the power plant a few months ago, which the question is...
An explosion or an accident at the power plant. So that hasn't happened yet.
And what does a few months ago mean? Like, in relation to what? Does he mean in the 80s? He's currently in the 80s, but we'll see.
Personally, I think it's a fourth time further in the future.
I think it, like, if it isn't a fourth time, I would say it's in the 80s, because that would make sense, because then that would be the present, whereas the 2019 would be the future, and the past, you know, like, it's the middle point.
Right. But a few months, okay. All right. I sort of see what you're saying.
But, so... basically, we get at least what his goal is. He wants to close the portal. He is Donnie Darko. So, and this whole back and forth, obviously, is a tropic thing in general, but also reminiscent of Donnie Darko when he goes and learns about wormholes and all that stuff. And they talk about Einstein, Rosenberg, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we've called out references seemingly to Donnie Darko in the past. Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to get into our points of interest. Woohoo! All right, here we go. This is our first point.
Right. So in the talk between the stranger and Tannhaus, we have the Trinity knot or the triquetra or triquetra. So basically the idea is that there's nothing complete without a third dimension. Instead of like the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is just like enforcing dualism, like forward and backward, there's a third dimension. And with it, it's in the context of the wormhole. The wormhole connects 3 different dimensions: the past, the present, and the future. So, and with that, there is a center. So, where is the center? I guess is the question, or one of the.
Or is the center just a cave?
Yes. Yeah. It is a physical location. So they also say how every 33 years the moon synchronizes with the moon's orbit becomes synchronized with the sun, and that's why that's kind of like the distance between the time travel. So that, they're making it make sense. They're also connecting the number 33 to a bunch of things. There were 33 sheep dead in that field once upon a time, and then there's all this stuff with like Dante and Dante's Inferno. So it goes beyond.
Jesus and,
so it's both scientific but and also spiritual.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the stuff we learn in this conversation is like not necessarily totally new information, but more just confirming and making things clearer.
Yeah. Additionally, we have talk about wormholes bending space and time and nothing being where it belongs.
As you see in these pictures we're doing in the video version.
Yes. Oh my God, these transitions are hilarious. So instead, if you shine the light, it can bend backwards with a wormhole, even though that's not how it should work in theory. So where's the beginning? Where's the end?
Nothing is as it seems or should be seeming.
So the question some of the questions are, is it possible to change things by traveling through time, or was the course of events predetermined? Can people affect their lives? We like to believe so, but is it really the case?
So, which basically says that the way that the stranger talked to Jonas last episode was kind of him pushing his own agenda, like at least saying this is what I believe, but it's not necessarily the truth.
Right. Yes. All right. Next point of interest is Ulrich attacking Helga. So this is really connected to that predetermined events, because that's the whole reason that Ulrich kills him or tries to kill him is to avoid the killings of his brother and his son.
Yeah, he's trying. This is like the first thing of like the very hardcore of like, I am trying to change the past. Let's see if I can do it.
Right. So this episode also discusses what makes a person a killer. So does Ulrich, trying to kill Helga actually help push Helga into committing murderous acts, or at least not caring about human life? Or was he always going to be like this, considering, the whole things of like hallmarks of killers, like bullying, animal cruelty, like that was already being an outsider, like that was already, maybe he was already capable of this kind of thing. And it reminds me a bit of that, like, would you kill baby Hitler or could you kill baby Hitler thought experiment of like, would that avoid the Holocaust? Would you do that?
I think they're definitely trying to evoke that classic thing here.
Yeah. And we even have Egan and that other police officer talking about like what makes a person a killer, and the other guy being like, oh man, if we knew someone could be a killer, we'd just throw them in jail like when they're little and not a problem. So I think that especially calls that to mind.
Yeah, he says that sort of as a joke, but it is sort of thematically relevant. And Egon is definitely having his like Mindhunter moment.
Yeah, I was thinking of like, what is killing? Yes. So I think it's all connected. I think this part was a really well done, philosophical question of this episode, even if it is a bit of a trope or thing that we've seen before.
Well, and so then, seemingly, at least from the looks of things, he doesn't actually kill Helge, which would imply that he can't change the past, but I'm still personally of the opinion that so far no one has changed anything, but if you do something drastic enough, which will be even more drastic than this, you might be able to change things.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Ulrich, in a way, I'm like, Ulrich should know that he knows Helga, who has a mangled ear. So therefore, he mangled the ear, like that side of his face. So therefore, he survives. And I mean, we saw Helga, young, like injured Helga, waking up in the playroom in the previous episode. So someone has to save him and bring him to the a different version, the 80s version of the bunker. I'm assuming it's Noah.
Yeah. And that would be part of why he like follows Noah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ulrich doing this in general. Kind like whether you even agree with the Hitler thing or not, he's kind of jumping to some conclusions.
Yeah.
He doesn't have definitive proof that Helga in general is the one who killed these people. Yeah, he has one of those coin thingies. He's definitely, and he says, oh, you're involved, but like, it's a big leap is all I'm saying.
It really is. And this is where Ulrich is still that like angry guy, angry person who isn't a very good cop. He's just being taken in by his trauma and his hurt, and it's causing him to continue to blow up. This is the man who tried to break into a power plant and got himself beat up, and he just lets life beat him up and pushes that anger onto other things. Like he's not a typical hero for sure.
I suppose he also knows that Helga knows about time travel. I mean, he has certainly plenty of reasons to be suspicious of him. I'm just saying, if you're gonna kill a little kid, maybe be 100% sure first.
I don't think he went over to the house 100% planning to kill him, though. I think in that discussion with little Helga and seeing him
with the bird,
I honestly think that him being like, they're so beautiful when they're dead was like, okay, he's gonna be a killer. Like, because at this point we do know this kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I think that if he was just at his baseline, and at the end of the episode, we see him like standing there staring at the bunker, like, what have I done? I don't think he's like, great, I'm going to go home and everything's fine. Or maybe if I get home, it'll be fine. I think he's really like sitting there with the weight of his actions. He acted rashly and it might not work.
So the other thing I have is, do we think it's too contrived that he didn't actually kill him?
A little.
It seems a little silly. I mean, he beats him in the head with a rock multiple times. He's an adult male smashing a little kid's head. I mean, I think it's a little goofy.
I think so too.
But
yeah. I don't know if I buy it, but at the same time, I guess he didn't like check to see if he died, and also I don't know. All right, so the next little point of interest is about Ulrich's phone. So when Tannhaus is like locking up for the night, he hangs Ulrich's coat, he reaches into his pocket, he finds his phone, he investigates it, it lights up, we see Ulrich's family. Tannhaus is like, what the hell is this? He's like spooked by it. And the question we have is, does Tannhaus finding the phone change something, or was he always supposed to find it? And kind of maybe use it to help him build the time machine. It's that question that even he and the stranger talk about. It's what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is one fate always inextricably bound to another? Is cause and effects like intertwined forever? So even his path into being this like scientist philosopher might have only been set off by Ulrich and by Ulrich time traveling. Even it's kind of like mind-boggling a bit.
It's cool. And something that we should talk about that we haven't mentioned is also at the end when he has the broken machine and then he takes down the brand new machine, and he has both. And it's interesting.
When the stranger asks him to fix it, and he like freaks out. All right. Next one, we have Noah. We've kind of talked about him a bit, but specifically why this is like notable is that when the stranger brings up the Antichrist, his rule beginning at age 33, it switches over to Noah. So is Noah like metaphorically the Antichrist, or maybe not metaphorically?
Also, would you think that he looks 33? I could maybe buy. He looks older than that.
He looks older than that to me,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's also seemingly the same age looking throughout all three timelines. So
him like always being 33, I would be interesting.
Right. But Noah's standing there in the churchyard, like smirking like this, and he's holding a notebook, or maybe it's a Bible, and it's got the Trinity knot on the cover. We do know that Noah showed up in Vinden as the new priest in the 80s. So that kind of lends credence to the 80s being maybe like also the center, the present of when things take place from.
Well, the other question is that notebook he has, is that the same one that we saw like Peter have in the future? I'd have to look
That's a question.
Back.
Yeah. I don't know if we saw the cover of it.
I think it had a Trinity thingy.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
All right, a little bedroom scene. So Ulrich's grandma, Agnes, moves in with Tronte as a boarder to the Tiedemann household, and here we have them making the bed together.
So Doris and Agnes.
Doris. Yeah. Ooh, and their hands touch. Wow. So the way both of them react, the way like Doris is like, and then Agnes like looks over her shoulder afterwards when Doris isn't looking. I think it's hinting, and they're making a bed together. Yeah. I think it's hinting to an affair between them. And you know, again, we have infidelity also looping through, especially with the Nielsen family. Like Tronte's, you know, unfaithful Ulrich, and maybe it started here with the grandmother. So,
which I appreciated this because I thought when Egon met Agnes, I was like, oh, okay, this is Egon's gonna end up with Agnes.
Yeah, it's different. You know. I like it more.
Yeah.
Egon's too busy solving crimes and saving people.
Yeah.
Whereas Doris, the housewife, is like, oh my God, a vampy red woman. I'm into it.
Which also brings up the idea of, is this what led to his drinking?
Yes.
Egon.
Yeah. I really wonder that.
And next.
All right. So this is Tronte's arm. To me, this looks like cigarette burns. And I think he was being abused by his father.
Yep.
So instead of being dead, maybe Agnes's husband, Tronte's father, wasn't abusive, and they escaped to Vinden to get away from him, or maybe she killed him, or someone killed him, and they're fleeing, the crime and that kind of thing. But I think this like anger and acting not abusive, not saying, well, arguably Ulrich killing Helga is an act of abuse, but you know, it's like acting rashly and having this like anger issue and volatile temperament could again be like in the Nielsen family.
Little theory I have: could Noah be Agnes's husband?
Oh my God!
Yes, it would be interesting.
That very well could be. Wow, that would be messed up. Jeez, add it to the list of messed up things.
And finally,
all right, last but not least, we have elderly Claudia, and we know it's her because she has photos on her wall connected by yarn. And as we see young Claudia, middle-aged Claudia, there's a photo of this elderly Claudia, and she's standing in a bunker, not necessarily the same bunker, but a bunker.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was definitely confused about because, is it the same bunker? Because they have the whole thing of, early in the episode, they have the acorns that are fake grenades, and then later on, she has actual grenades.
Yeah.
But if it is the same bunker, is it a fourth time period? Because we just saw it in the 50s. Obviously, it didn't look like this. In the 80s, it has the wallpaper. And Charlotta has been to the one in the present tons of times. So, yeah.
Yeah. And we thought that she was dead. We thought that she maybe died of breast cancer or something. But it seems like she's in the loop of this time travel theory, which makes sense because Helga gave her a copy of the book by Tannhaus when she became the plant director in the 80s. Yeah. So it's interesting that I completely did not expect her to still be a piece on the chessboard.
Yeah, so that's an interesting reveal.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, so now we have a couple of things for feedback. You can reply to our video in the comments section on YouTube, or you can send us an email to ourpodcastfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also rate us or review us on Apple or Audible or Stitcher, all sorts of things. That'd be great.
That would help people find us. Mm-hmm. All right, so our first bit of feedback comes from the Kawaii Slarty Bartfast. Noah was cleaning the bunker in 1953. The playroom O'Doom is in 1986, which, makes sense with the decor and the, sound effects and middle-aged Helga, walking in and out of it. Olga got the time travel right. The caves only let you travel 33 years from that time. So using the caves, you couldn't travel a week back and forth. You'd have to travel and wait a week. So since time being nonlinear is a thing, only 5 days have actually passed since Mikkel disappeared.
So, it's interesting because in a weird way, time is linear. Like all 3 times are moving forward equally.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, it's such a different take on time travel.
Yeah.
That I appreciate.
So that lends me to believe yes, if you want to move to a certain week in the future, but in the past, once you get back to your other timeline, a week will have passed and you will have been missing for a week. Yeah. So it's, I guess, it's not very convenient to use the caves. You really do need that machine.
It's not like Mikkel could come back to right when he was gone or anything like that.
Yeah. Our other bit of feedback comes from Ivana2804 via Twitter. I enjoyed listening to your theories and speculation. Right and wrong, and there was both. There were a couple of times when I giggled to myself and thought, oh, you sweet summer child. I wonder. I
hope that's because of the incest, and it's gonna go hardcore.
Oh my God,
into
Dan,
incest.
leave it alone. Anyway, but you've missed a couple of important points of interest, and I'd love to know your thoughts on these things. To convince Jonas to leave Mikkel in 1986, the stranger didn't just point out that Jonas wouldn't be born. He told him, and your role in all of this is much bigger than you think, which is, of course, not a surprise, as Jonas is the protagonist. Mm-hmm. But what do you think he meant by that? And do you think Jonas would have been convinced to leave Mikkel and protect his own existence if the stranger hadn't told him that?
Yes, I do. I think that the whole thing of not wanting to not exist is a much more powerful motivator than you're important.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. I think that it helped that the stranger was there to remind Jonas that he wouldn't exist if he took Mikkel away. But I think he would have realized that, seeing Mikkel with his mom, I think no matter what would have jogged his.
Well, and I think you could say that adds to his self-preservational aspect. If the whole idea is that he was somewhat suicidal and being told you're important, I guess that could add to him wanting to preserve himself.
Yeah. And just Noah also validates the fact that Jonas isn't losing his mind, that
Even
this is real.
You said Noah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the stranger validates that this is real, that Jonas isn't losing his mind, that, this is really, really happening, and therefore it helps bolster Jonas's confidence with that being and you're important.
And as far as him being important, at this point, if he's not the stranger, that's kind of weird. I assume he's important because the stranger's important and he is the stranger.
I'm pretty sure he's the stranger, but
at this point, I might be upset if he isn't.
Yeah.
But unless they come up with something that equally makes sense and is equally as interesting.
Right.
But
I would be disappointed if adult Jonas isn't important at some point, I guess.
We shall see.
We shall. How much did we get right or wrong this time? Don't actually let us know because...
But wink at us in the comments below.
Yeah, I never know. When I'm reading our comments, I'm like, people are confirming us being right, but is that fair? Because the show is what should be confirming us being right. So please be careful with spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan.
All right, guys.
Tag it as let Dan read this in the future.
We will be back next week with episode 9. Almost done with season 1. Wow. Very exciting. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you in the future.
Bye-bye.